Hi, everyone. It's great to see you here again today. Welcome. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living, Victoria Online. So happy to know that you're here and that you've been tuning in on Sundays and catching up with messages. And I'm just trusting that everybody is doing well in social isolation. It certainly is a challenging time, and at the same time, there are many gifts in it. I know that for me, being introspective has really brought a lot of new revelations about me to myself, and I'm expecting that it's doing the same for you. And I think that it can help us to create much more positive lives in the future. I've been talking a lot about personal power in the last few weeks because I really felt that it was a time for us to be reflecting upon that and to really understanding the power that we have within us, each one of us. And so my talk today is titled Wonderful, Powerful You. And I'm starting out with a story that you've likely heard before, the story of a group of scientists who were sitting around talking about all of their wonderful accomplishments. And they decided that they could do absolutely everything and anything that was required on this earth. And as they chatted about it, they said, we really don't need God anymore. We can give him a break. He's been hard at work for how many hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, maybe billions of years. Let's go talk to him. Let's just tell him that he can take a good break. He could retire now. He can start hanging out at Starbucks and chatting with people. And he could go golfing. He can take a cruise. There are all kinds of things that he can do that he probably would have liked to have done all along. And so the scientists agreed, and one of them was appointed to go and meet with God. So he made an appointment, and off he went. He and God got together, and they were sitting having their lattes at Starbucks. And um, God said, well, what is this about? Why are you here? And the scientist said, well, we've been thinking. We in science can really do anything. We've mastered everything. And so we don't really need you anymore. And we just want to give you a rest. We want you to be able to go out and enjoy your life more. And God said, well, you really do believe that you can do absolutely everything that I've done. And they said, yes, absolutely we can. And God said, well, I'll think about that. And they said, actually, let's have a little competition. If you can do what I can do in this competition, then I'm willing to step down and to just take a rest and to relax from all of this that I've been doing for so many years. And the scientist said, sure, I can do just about anything. So, just lay it on me. Tell me what it is. I'll do it. And then you can just relax, God. And so God said, well, I want you to remember the book of Genesis in the Bible. And remember, after I created the earth and created light and the sun and the moon and the stars and animals and, humanity, actually. He said, remember when I created Adam? And the scientist said, yes, I remember that story. And he said, I reached down and just took a handful of the earth, dust from the earth, just plain old dirt. And out of that dirt, I created the first man on this earth. And he said, do you think you can do that? And the scientist said, no problem. I know how to do that. I'll show you. And so he reached down and he took a big handful of dirt, and God said, get your own dirt. And I love that story. It just always makes me laugh. And it makes me laugh because there's a truth in that. The truth in that is that we sometimes think we can just leave God out of our lives. We can leave this power out of our lives. We can do everything ourselves. We don't need to be checking in with this divine power every day or every moment or, at Easter and Christmas only, whatever it happens to be. We think we've got it made. And I'm thinking we make our lives so much more difficult when we do that. And the thing is that we need to talk about what God is anyway, or who God is. If you haven't been watching this before, or if you've not been part of the teaching of Science of Mind that is taught in Centers for Spiritual Living, then you might still have that old-fashioned idea about a God who lives somewhere up there in the sky, perhaps sitting on a cloud, sitting on a throne. He's an old man with a long white beard, and he's watching every move that we make, and he's judging us. And if we do something bad, we're going to go to a very, very hot place when the time comes for us to leave our physical bodies on this plane. And it's something that I certainly grew up with that. But there came a time where I just couldn't believe it any longer. And so in this teaching, we absolutely know that God is something different. Now, if the word God or the name God happens to disturb you, then it doesn't matter what you call it. Call it the source, call it the universe, call it creation, call it Henry. It doesn't matter, because this power knows to respond to everything because it responds to your thoughts. So I thought, though, that I would go into the Science of Mind textbook and would just read you a few lines about what Ernest Holmes has to say about what God is, and then to talk about that a little bit more. Because in this teaching, we know that God's just not an old man. Ernest Holmes references God as the creative energy, which is the cause of all visible things. Love, wisdom, intelligence, power, substance, mind, and truth, which are all real. Any of those words can be used for God, and all of them can be used for God. It's God consciousness. God consciousness is our self-knowing. Our self-knowing mind is our unity with the whole, our unity with everything that is. And it's our perception of reality. This unity with God on the conscious side of life is the guarantee that we are the center of God consciousness, that we are part of the consciousness of the all-powerful. It's some of this languaging is something that can put our brains in a twist sometimes until we can really get into a deeper understanding about this teaching and about what God is. And perhaps a simpler way of explaining this is just to say that we're each individualized expressions of God, of this power. This power is within us. It's within each one of us. Now, if I don't have any more of it than you have, and as I've said before, Jesus didn't have any more than you have, Mother Teresa didn't, Gandhi didn't. We're all given equal amounts of this power because we are made out of this stuff. We're made out of this energy. We have this intelligence, this truth, this wisdom within us. And perhaps we've reached a point in our lives where we've got so involved in science and in intellect that we've forgotten this, that we've forgotten about the truth of who we are, that we've forgotten that we are spirit having a human experience. And we need to get back into that place to really know that, so that we can explore this power and we can put it to conscious use in our lives and we can see wonderful results from it. I really trust that we're all ready to do that, and such a good time for us to be thinking about this when we have so much more time on our hands than we've typically had before, and when we have more quiet time and we can just go within and really contemplate these things, go into our hearts, listen to what our hearts have to say, get our intellects out of the way. You know, I don't know, if you were like me growing up, you would probably think that or you could probably hear your mother's voice in your head saying, how conceited is that to think that you're part of God? I mean, that's ridiculous. And the thing is, it doesn't mean that we have an inflated sense of self. What it means is that we understand that everyone and everything has this presence within. Everything is made out of this intelligence. Everything has been created. The dirt that was on the earth itself, the solar system, the universe, everything created by this intelligence, by this power. And we need to understand that. And it's absolutely fine to know, in fact, it's important to know that each one of us is part of God. And God is all of us. All of that power that God is lives within each one of us and connects us one to the other. And so we are powerful, and we have to understand that power and how we can put it to use and the good that we can do with it. Not to put ourselves down, not to put anyone else down on this planet, but to really fully embody this, to fully understand it in every way and then to put it to good use. Carl Jung and Thoreau, of course, wrote about this as well. And I wanted to share something with you that each of them had to say. When he was interviewed, Carl Jung was asked if he believed in God. And he said, "I could not say that I believe. I know. I have had the experience of being gripped by something stronger than myself, something that people call God." You know, think about that. Have you been gripped by something stronger than yourself, even for only one moment in your life? I love that expression, gripped by something stronger than myself, and something that people call God. He went on to say that to be consciously merged into that perfect union with God is a feeling that's difficult to explain, but ego definitely takes a back seat. You know that you are allowing yourself to be guided by a force that is bigger than you are, and if you so choose, you can stay infinitely connected to it. And I love that. We need to stay infinitely connected to that power, infinitely connected to what Jung calls God, infinitely connected to whatever we call it, spirit, source, whatever it is. And to be connected to it, we have to recognize it. We have to be consciously aware of it and be aware of it all the time, to start training our minds, training ourselves for that awareness. It's always there, and it just never, ever goes away. We're the ones who, like the scientists, don't think we need it any longer, don't think about it any longer, just go on our merry way. And sometimes life is just not as easy as it might be. In 1851, Thoreau wrote about this same connection and what it felt like to him. This was in his boyhood. And he said, "There comes into my mind such an indescribable, infinite, all-absorbing, divine, and heavenly pleasure, a sense of elevation and expansion, and I have nothing at all to do with it. I perceive that I am dealt with by a superior power. This is a pleasure, a joy, an existence which I have not procured for myself. I speak as a witness on the stand, and I tell you that I have been procured by God." As I read this past week, I had a lot of ideas that were floating through my mind, but one particular memory that is very, very powerful and that was life-changing for me in absolutely every way. I had been doing my ministerial studies. Actually, I had been studying for 13 years, but officially doing my ministerial studies for about the last 5 years of that time, completing them in 2004. And in 2004, we were called to write a final exam, and then to go to Monterey, California, where we as ministerial students would be paneled by a group of some of the best minds in this teaching. And it was a daunting thing to think about. And I'd always had a lot of self-confidence about many things in my life. And I really wasn't sure that I knew enough or that I was good enough to become a minister. I was going through a lot of self-exploration at that time, and I thought, I haven't got the textbook memorized. I don't know if anybody does, but I really felt that perhaps I didn't know enough, and that perhaps this wasn't what I was supposed to do, that other people were much better than I. And I went and talked to my most recent teacher about this, and said that I really thought that I would forego the exams and that I wouldn't become a minister. And some of my colleagues were with me, some of my fellow students. And my minister said, "You're going to write this exam, and you're going to go and do your panels. And I'm not taking no for an answer." And I was feeling quite shaken and just really lacking the confidence to go forward. And that changed in the blink of an eye when one of my colleagues and friends in the class said to me, God does not choose the qualified. God qualifies the chosen. And I knew that I had been chosen. And so at that moment, I had absolute faith that God would qualify me. And I tell you this today because I wonder what you've been called to do. And I wonder if you feel qualified to do it. And I wonder what qualifications you think you need. And whatever it is that you've been called to do, can you understand that God qualifies you when you make the choice? God qualifies wonderful, powerful you when you decide exactly what it is that you're to do. And it doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what your education is. None of those things matter a hoot. What matters is that you're clear, absolutely clear in your mind about what it is that you're called to do. And that may mean going into your heart for some serious self-examination, for sitting in the silence, for listening for that still small voice, because perhaps we've forgotten some of the things that we really wanted to do. And so I really, really invite you to do that, to figure out exactly what it is that you're being called to do, and then to know with utmost faith and confidence that there is a power so much greater than anything you can imagine that is going to qualify you, is going to guide you, is going to tell you what your first step is and what each step is along the way. That's the power that is within us. That's the still small voice that is within. And that's what we need to be listening to, and really getting the ego part of ourselves out of the way, thinking that perhaps we know better or making excuses for why we're not doing those things. That calling is in our hearts. What we need to remember is God is a presence, not a person. God is this power, this intelligence that takes a seed and grows it into a beautiful flower that moves the stars across the sky, that moves our thoughts across our minds just as easily and simultaneously, that is basically in charge of everything. And there's absolutely no reason at all for us to feel helpless. And there certainly is no reason for us to feel hopeless, no matter what is going on out there in the world. This is a time that, we might be feeling a bit helpless and a bit hopeless because of this COVID-19 virus that is around. But we have to know that our God is more powerful than the virus. And that when we pray, when we absolutely go into that place within and access our power and send out positive energy and surround ourselves with positive energy, we are helping. We're helping in ways that we simply may not understand, in ways that we may think are impossible because science has to do it all. Well, science does have to do this, but science has to be guided by another force, by a superior force, by a higher power. And that's something that we need to remember. This divine guidance has to take place here and now for this to be conquered, for this to dissipate into nothingness, so that we don't have to revisit it ever again. I'm going to read something else that Ernest Holmes wrote that I think is really important for us to remember right now. It's on page 401 in the textbook, and it is in large capital letters, which is unusual because he didn't always write in large capital letters. He says, "We must believe. We must believe." Big, big letters. And we must learn how to believe. We should treat ourselves until we do believe. Now, by treat, he means we should be doing spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer. We call affirmative prayer spiritual mind treatment in this teaching, and we call it prayer, so that it's less confusing for people when we do that. And we know that prayer works. I know that prayer works. I've had so many examples of this in my life. And I know that each of you has had some experience with this as well. Think about it. Remember a time. And there's an expression too, we may not always get what we want, but we get what we need. And then comes the time when we really understand the gift that was in what it was we needed at that time, that helped us with our personal growth, that helped us to go forward with our lives. And so we need to make it easier on ourselves, not make everything so difficult. I've, for one, made things difficult. I've had a wonderful, wonderful life, and I've worked very, very hard, but I realized I didn't have to work all that hard. I was like the scientist who thought I could do everything myself. I wasn't always prepared to turn things over to God. The most wonderful experience I had, truly an outstanding one that I will never forget. It was when I had my first church of my own in Vancouver, the Agape Center for Spiritual Living. And I was working on a talk one day. I was sitting in Starbucks over on Granville and Broadway, corner of Granville and Broadway. And I had a title, and the title was The Three Faces of God. And I had no idea what I was going to write about. I had no idea what that meant at all. I was just sitting there contemplating it. And as I did, I saw that there was a homeless man outside. And there were several tables outside that were empty. It was a cool day. And there were empty coffee cups, or they appeared to be empty, that were on the tables. There were no people there except him. And he was going along and looking in every cup. And he finally found one that had something in it. And then he came into the coffee shop. And he sat down at a table. And it was as if having a Starbucks cup in his hand gave him the confidence that he had the right to be there. And he was coughing terribly. And I was really concerned that he had pneumonia, that he was really close to death. I have never heard such a terrible cough in my life, and he just didn't stop. And my first instinct was to go over to him and speak to him and ask if I could help. Could I take him to the hospital? Could I take him to a doctor? I'd be happy to do that. And that's typically what I would have done under other circumstances. But something in me that day said, no, just sit here and close your eyes and pray. And so I prayed. I prayed to this intelligence, this wisdom, this power, this holy presence. And I asked that this man's lungs be cleared and comforted, that he is comfortable where he is, that he doesn't have to struggle so, and that all of his needs are met. And I sat there in silence for a while, just allowing those words to go from my head into my heart. Just wanting this man to have the highest and best for himself in that moment and in his life, and for healing to take place. Well, about 10 minutes later, an elegant African-American woman walked through the door. She was dressed in a beautiful business suit, and she had a portfolio under her arm. And she didn't go over to the counter. She turned and went directly to the homeless man. And she had money in her hand. She had several bills in her hand. And she leaned over and she said, "Are you hungry? May I buy you some food?" And he said, no, I'm not hungry. And so she handed him the money and she said, "Here then, take this. And when you're hungry, get yourself something to eat." And he was just shocked. He just sat there in silence. And then she turned, went in the opposite direction toward the counter, the cashier, where she ordered her coffee. And she got her coffee and left. And then I'd say about 10 minutes after that, a man came in, and he was very well dressed. And actually, I had seen him outside just before that, and he was going from table to table, and there were now some people sitting at those tables. And he went from table to table, and he was talking to each of them, kind of had a hand out. And I thought, gosh, he doesn't look like he needs money. And then I thought, well, maybe he lost his wallet. Maybe he lost his car keys. Maybe he needs to take a bus somewhere. I had no idea what was going on, but I was quite perplexed. He came in the door, and again, he turned away from the counter and walked directly to the homeless man, and he handed him a cigarette. Well, I about fell out of my chair. I mean, the last thing I would have been praying for this man who had this dreadful, dreadful cough, that somebody would give him a cigarette. But I was asking that his needs be met. And he was so excited. He stood up and he kept thanking the man. He kept calling him Buddy, saying, "Thank you, Buddy. Thank you, Buddy." And then he went outside and he started going from table to table. And he was asking people, obviously, for a light for the cigarette. And finally, somebody lit the cigarette for him. And I have never seen anyone enjoy the first few puffs of a cigarette as much as I did see this man do it. And the young man who had come in the suit had got his coffee and was then sitting with a friend. Now, what was fascinating to me was that the African American woman and this young man came into Starbucks, did not look at anyone else, came in and directly went to this homeless man and had something to give him. And I just thought this was astonishing. And the young man went and sat with a friend who was waiting for him. And I watched this man outside smoking his cigarette, and then he disappeared. And I swear I saw the image of Jesus in the window. It wasn't this man, but it was this shining, beautiful, spiritual being. And I'll never forget it. And what I saw that day, I saw the three faces of Christ, the three faces of God. The African American woman, the young man who came into Starbucks, and the homeless man. And what I learned was I could do more by sitting in prayer than I could by getting up and running after this man and wanting to take him to a hospital. I could do so much more by being in my heart, by being in prayer to this Holy Spirit that is within me, that is within you, that is within everyone. We need to be connected. We need to live in that connection. We need to make it homeless, we need to make it easy on ourselves and not be hopeless, and not to think that there is nothing that we can do. There is so much we can do because this power works. This is amazing. And so it's really a time for us to remember this. Make it easy on ourselves. I get it, I lose it, I get it, I lose it, I get it, I lose it. Well, during this time of self-isolation, I've been getting it a lot more often. I've been feeling this presence within in the most magnificent way. I'm knowing that if you're doing your spiritual work, that you're having this same experience. And so think today, what is it that you're praying for? What is it that you really want in your life? And in your prayers, see it done. See your highest and best unfolding for you now, today, tomorrow, and always. Watch God work wonders, work absolute wonders on wonderful, powerful you. And so it is. Bless you for being here. And I'm passing the invisible basket again today and asking you please to go to the donate button at the top of this webpage and to make your contribution to us. Many of you have been doing that, and it's wonderful. I'm so grateful because it means that our center is going to be strong and viable when we all get back to it. And it's all because of you. If you are watching this on Facebook rather than on our website, then please go to our website at www.cslvictoria.org and you'll see the donate button there. Or you can send a check to our treasurer, Lillian Slanina. For those of you who are on our email list, you have her address and you can send it to her there. Or you can send me an e-transfer to Rev Carrie, that's REVCARRIE, at shaw.ca, and I will see that it gets deposited into the center's bank account and that the amount of your donation is given to our treasurer so that she can issue a tax receipt for you at the end of the year. Thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for who you be. Thank you for tuning in today. And I trust that we'll see you again next week. And also remember to check out Zoom on next Wednesday night, or rather Wednesday afternoon at 4 p.m. I'm going to be sending out the link to that because Darlene, our music director, Darlene Haynes, and I are going to be doing a Taizé service at 4 p.m. next Wednesday. So tune in and enjoy that. And then Thursday evening, Reverend Joanna at 6:30 p.m. will be doing a meditation on Zoom, and it's wonderful. We've been joining her the past few weeks to do that. And then Friday night, Wayne Powell is going to be doing a Cozy Couch concert from the Virgin Islands. So that link has been sent out as well, and I'll be sending that out again just before the concert. So lots of things going on. Reverend Rachel is teaching a course in miracles, if you want to know more about that. Annette Schneider is starting another course in quantum healing and specifically on attracting financial prosperity into our lives. All of these things are going out in our newsletters, so keep an eye open for them and let's know that we just continue to be vital and strong and to be a happening place, right exactly where we are, all you wonderful people. Bless you all. God bless you, and have a great week. And so it is. See you soon. Bye for now.